6 o'clock. Call meeting to order, 6 o'clock. We'll go on to number 2, adjustments. There are no adjustments to the agenda. Period of public participation. Is there anyone wishing to address the board this evening? We'll go on to the approval of the minutes of meeting 10:39 and special meeting 10:40. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of 10:39.
Is there a second? Okay. Any questions? Okay, we'll vote in favor of approving the minutes of both meetings. Okay, I'll turn it over to Ben. School integration updates, Ben?
Not a whole lot to report out for as far as Maine Department of Education updates. The DOE does put out a weekly update. They call it their priority notice. And this week, not a whole lot pertaining to us. One is the health advisory system that the department uses to color code all of the districts. They just gave an update that of the color codes, and right now there's 2 counties that are being monitored closely in yellow designation, and that's York and Oxford. They're also monitoring Androscoggin. And what's interesting is when they're explaining how they move the designation from green to yellow, it's not X amount of cases, it's a rapid increase in cases in that area. So it's good to know how the system works. When they're seeing large spikes, that's when they're moving into that designation. Aroostook County continues to be good. There was some questions locally recently about when Aroostook County reached above 5 positive cases. I think we're at 6 or 7 positive cases in Aroostook County. They wanted to know why we were not moving to a hybrid model. And I had to explain to folks that we follow the St. John Valley data, not the Aroostook County data, because of how big Aroostook County is. Currently, St. John Valley has 1 active case. And so we're monitoring that on the Northern Maine Medical Center website. And you take the total positive cases minus the recovered cases, and you see how many active cases there are. So right now, like I said, 1 active case. That's all I have for department updates. Principals, did you want to talk about your school reintegration, how things are going? I know, Ralph, you have been on a break for 2 weeks, but Cheryl?
I am nothing but impressed by what I see. And we had these horrible thoughts of little kids in masks all day, and they are amazing. Most of them don't miss a beat. It's just a natural thing at this point, even and staff included. It's really going well. I'm very, very impressed with staff and how they're handling things. Trying to keep kids off the distance. That's the hardest thing I think is when they're walking down the hall or going up to the bus, is that distance gets shorter and shorter, but they just need reminders. We see no defiance really. It's just, I'm impressed by everything I'm seeing. And the support of parents at home, sending them with cute masks and something fun. And so the support all around is amazing. I think it's a great place to be. Let me tell you, I would love to have my grandchildren in that building.
That's great.
Sure.
Thank you. Ralph, you had a workshop day today, and staff seem re-energized after harvest break.
It's a totally exuberant word, but I think they were glad to be back with each other.
Yeah.
That's that collegiality has really been missing this year because they're not able to congregate the way they usually would be. So we kind of met here, and we kept having we would meet here for a little bit, go work on our own someplace else, and then come back here and so forth. We did a lot of stop and go with that today. I will be meeting with all the class levels tomorrow, along with the nurse and with Ms. Wilford. Can I just remind what the expectations on the timelines are? In case 2 weeks in the minor high school, who knows how many hands are going to make up couple years of information lost, but we just want to kind of remind them, what all these are doing.
Kevin, for you in your building?
Yep, things are going well. When we integrated in the school, students were cooperative, wearing the mask, and tomorrow they'll be back in the doors or anticipating the same. Staff are glad to be back. They had a great 2 weeks. Weather was great, so things are going well overall.
Great. I think what we find out more than anything, and we hear this throughout the state, is that the kids are really resilient. And it's really nice to see that, for the most part, you see compliance across the board. Same thing with staff, really working hard and reminders. So that's all very good. The second update I'd like to give you under this same topic is a CRF update. CRF stands for Coronavirus Relief Funds. If you remember, we had received coronavirus relief funds a few weeks back. We've targeted those funds for various projects that we've shared with you. Last week, we received information that we have again another allocation of CRF2 funds. These funds are slightly higher than the first one. So MSAD33's allocation is $278,735.88. And CRF2 funds, that's $278,735.88. So right now, we've got the ball rolling on asking your administrators to really think about projects that need to happen, and the way that I've explained it to them, think about which holes were not filled with the first round of CRF funds and what's left to be filled. And that's how we're approaching it. In a few minutes, Giselle will share with you some updates on the bus fleet. We are targeting CRF funds for buses for this district. The problem with buses is that they're nearly impossible to find because everybody in the state is doing the same thing. So buses and minivans are a rare commodity. Luckily, we had somebody in the know behind the scenes. Peter Associate, the transportation director in Fort Kent, was actually able to secure 4 buses, and 2 of those were looking to identify for MSAD33, one for Madawaska and one for 27. So those are 2 things we know we want to purchase with these funds. Cheryl's already submitted some projects in her building that she's hoping will have some consideration. And when we know more about this, we will share with you. The thing with this is the turnaround time is crazy fast. We actually have to have our initial application in by next Thursday, the 15th. So we have to spend $278,000 in a week, in 2 days. And I'm pretty sure we're up to the challenge, so we'll get it done. And we have to have the projects completed by December 30th. This is a federal mandate. Every superintendent of the state is begging that this mandate get waived and that we are allowed to spend money into next year. But right now, the answer from the federal level is no. So the department is working to try to get these things waived so that we can possibly not have to hurry up to spend this money. But we are planning to have to do it with the information we have right now.
Which would mean that the buses would have to be purchased before the 31st.
Yep, they're already ordered.
Oh, okay, well that's fair.
Yeah, Peter was able to locate buses that had a gear ratio, and Giselle, correct me if I'm wrong with this. They actually had a gear ratio for highway miles, for highway mileage. So most of the districts were not touching these buses because they weren't good for terrain like we have around here. In the negotiation, Peter was able to convince the seller to change the gear ratio to the right gear ratio at almost no cost difference. So those buses will be rated for plow or terrain here, which is wonderful.
And that's the 3 buses we're gonna get, right?
Yeah.
Right, the
Two
CRF.
from the CRS and 1 from the main.
I'm sorry.
Before
we go any further, I seem to have skipped over number 5. So we have the approval of the financial statements for September. Entertain a motion to approve the September 2020 revenue and expenditure report.
Motion to accept it.
Are there any questions? If not, we'll take a vote. In favor? Okay, sorry about that.
That's great. So if any of you have some ideas, suggestions, just shoot me an email. Maybe, you know, we're too focused in it, and we're not seeing things that you all see from a board level. It's got to be quick though, and again, with CRF funds, it cannot be something that we budgeted for. It cannot be something that, it has to be something that is directly related to the COVID-19 effect on our schools. So it has to have that alignment. But $270,000,
Nothing to talk about.
no,
That's for sure.
Is that something that we could use, like, I know somewhere in newspapers I read, they're gonna be doing an analysis of the ventilation for the winter coming up. I know we've been using the fans and that's, you know, worked for a while, but if we need something more, is that money that could be used?
and that's the purpose for having this. So in our weekly update to parents and staff and the families, we notified everyone that we're actually having the Thayer Corporation come up and do air quality studies in our facilities. If we have to put money aside for air purification and filtration, we're going to do that. Right now, SJVTC is not an issue. They have an air handler that is, you know, circulating the air, fresh air regularly. But this building and Dr. Levac are older buildings that don't have those systems. So definitely something we're going to take a look at and see what the quality of the air is.
Thank you.
I can ask the temporary support personnel.
Yeah.
Are they idea about making those be a full year versus anything in December?
I think we wanted to analyze mid-year, but I think we are targeting the ESSER funds for the second half of the year. Again, we can't use these funds for the same purpose because they expire December 30th. But yeah, it is our goal to keep that person for the year. Okay. Right, Lucy?
Okay, we will continue the October 1st enrollment projections.
So you, in your packet, have the October 1st enrollment projections. I went in today again just to take a sneak peek and see if what I had produced last week was off, and again today, it looked like it was still pretty much around the same numbers. You can see your classroom breakdown, and this year I added another row so you can see how many remote learners there are per grade level. Again, pre-K, you see the 16 on-site and 4 remote, and so on and so forth. Kindergarten has been a challenge.
It's a challenge.
It's been a challenge. That's a large class size. So you know, Cheryl is, you know, working with the staff to make sure that we're doing the best that we can with that. All in all, when this has happened, and I can tell you right now that there's a spreadsheet going on throughout the superintendents in the state tracking last year's October enrollments, this year's October enrollments, and how many kids have moved to homeschooling. For Aroostook County, and as of today, I think there was 10 districts that had reported. You were the only district showing a positive enrollment, and only by a couple of students. That being said, we do have 4 truants on this list, 5 truants now on this list that are actually they're actually going to be part of the counts, but it's a double-edged sword. We're going to get the enrollment for them, the subsidy, but we have 5 truants, which is not a good thing. So right now, we've reported this to DHHS, we've reported to the sheriff's office, and with so many school districts right now in flux and not having enrollment in school and having remote learning, it's really hard for schools to know which new kids have moved into their area and who hasn't enrolled for school. And so it's unfortunately just going to be a matter of time, hopefully, before this is sorted out. But right now, your enrollment seems to be pretty much level to where it was last year.
Question then, are the homeschool students counted in our enrollment figures?
Nope, they're transferred to a homeschool placement, and we do not get subsidy for them. Okay.
So we lost 14, but yet we still remain.
Yeah, there's an increase of 14, and I don't know if all 14 are specifically, were they enrolled in school last year? I can't say if all of them are, but I know many of them were, at least 10.
Oh,
So I think a couple of those are brand new ones that moved into the area that just decided to homeschool. Yeah, and you've also have less less incoming superintendent's agreements,
right.
which usually also impacts, but it's good enrollment numbers.
I have a question about that kindergarten 22. What kind of help do we have in there? Like, what do we have for assistance?
Right now, there is a full-time special ed support in there for a student who helps around, and we put as much ed tech time for Title I in there as possible. The unfortunate thing is we have only 2 ed techs that can go throughout the building, so we can't put it all in kindergarten because that means other people don't get it, other classrooms don't get it. But we are aware of that, and we're anytime there's any type of extra support, it's in that room. But she really does have a class full, and they are a particularly needy group. They were big last year in pre-K, so they might not have got the intervention that would have maybe helped, and then they had a third of the year gone, so it's a needy group, and there are a lot of them. So we're still trying to get creative on how we support her in there and how we support those learners, but we're working on it.
Because I know it was an issue in pre-K too. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Their needs.
Well, I'm hoping this year, splitting that, because there was another large pre-K class this year. Good problem to have. But splitting that, it's really nice seeing what they can do with half the class in there at once. It's going to make next year better for kindergarten.
Thank you, Sharon.
And it's one of those problems too right now with the guidelines in place. The more adults you add into the room, the less space you have, because those adults need 6 feet of distance. So it's problematic adding extra adults in a classroom. Unique challenge.
It is.
Okay. We'll move on to committee reports. Negotiations committee, Jean.
We met today, and I felt it was a positive thing. They brought their concerns to us, and we listened and we took notes. Probably the biggest thing is going to be health insurance. They don't really want to see much of an increase on their end. They want us to pick up a larger portion of it. And then the other thing that we kind of came across, and it's come up at other previous negotiations, is there's some inequity there that I'm having Lucy look into. A couple people feel that they have not been acknowledged for all their years of service. And we want to fix that because that's affecting their pay. And we certainly don't want to be losing people to other places. And I'm a little concerned that these are people that potentially could go apply other places if we don't make things right for them. So that's something we're going to work on. Other than that, I felt it was a good tone, very positive relationship between the two sides.
Thank you, Jean. Any questions for Jean? No. Okay. Under old business, Valley Unified Education Service Center, will that then address that?
So there was a Valley Unified Board meeting a couple of weeks ago now, and it was a very short meeting. Not a whole lot was said, but I don't think there had to be a lot said. I think everyone kind of knew that what was going on with regards to letters now that have been exchanged, a timeline that has been established by the department, which we are going to get in writing. I've been told by the commissioner we will be getting that deadline in writing. So when I get that, I will forward that to you. And then at the end of that Valley Unified Board meeting, I think we were all in consensus that we needed to re-engage the think tank as part of the first step of dispute resolution. And that's what's listed in our interlocal agreement as a first step to negotiate any disputes that we have. And everybody there was agreeable to that. I've reached out to the think tank members. We have established a date of the 14th of October for that meeting. That's next Wednesday. It's not a public meeting because we don't have, well, it can be a public meeting, but it's not going to be advertised as a public meeting because it's just a workshop session between those who are involved. But I think what we need to do is we need to discuss now with Josh and with Lena about what is it we are bringing to the table, or what is it we are not bringing to the table with regards to this negotiation phase. For the purpose of discussion, I did share this document, so you have a draft preliminary discussion starting point document. It's just something that I threw together as a way to engage in some conversation about what we can do with the Valley Unified Board of Directors. So the way we see things right now, there's three things that one district or the other have put into kind of non-negotiables. Actually, there's a little more than three things, but the three main things are site selection needs to stay where it is. Elementary needs to not be touched. We know we need to form an RSU because the department has told us we need to form that RSU. And actually, I should have said four. And the fourth one is there are concerns with the current makeup of the Valley Unified Board of Directors until we get to an RSU. So in this proposal, I simply thought, well, if we look at the cost share of Valley Unified and we break it up, the membership represents 10% of that total cost. Could we come up with a membership that's representative of those percent shares, rounded off for these purposes? And in this example, using the current Valley Unified assessment, MSAD33 was 51% of the share, would have 5 directors, each director representing 10% of the cost. You all would have 2 directors for your share, and Madawaska would have 3 directors for their share for a 10-member board. I don't know if that's palatable to you. I do know that when we get, and we've discussed this before, when we get to the formation of that RSU, it will be constricted to the size of your municipalities, and those representatives will be assigned based on how many residents you have in your community. I know that we talked about one town not sending X amount of representatives so that, their whole district is not represented. So in item B, I addressed that. School administrative units must appoint directors that are representative of the member communities they're elected to serve. At no time shall an SAU appoint more than 3 directors from one member community. So if this were to be entertained, your 5 directors from MSAD33 could not all be Fort Kent residents. They would have to, they could appoint 3, but the other 2 would have to be from 2 of the other communities so that they're representing.
Why 3 though? Why couldn't they have 1 from each community?
Because Madawaska has 3 and they're only one town. So I thought because Madawaska is afforded that, every district should have the opportunity to reach that.
Okay.
Just as a.
So if an RSU, or when the RSU is formed, tuitioning towns, are they part of the RSU? Because like you have Grand Isle.
It all depends if we want to invite the tuitioning communities to be part of that process. And that would be part of our agreement for RSU. These 3 districts would have to say, hey, we should invite Eagle Lake, we should invite Allagash, we should invite Grand Isle, and I don't know if that's what we're going to want to do.
Well, I was just curious if like the 3 directors in Madawaska, one of them could be from Grand Isle and like that kind of thing.
Grand Isle would have their own representation because they're their own.
So it brings up the number of directors.
Yeah.
So, excuse me then. Yeah. So you're saying that, okay, MSAD33 would have 5 directors, but they would have 1 from Fort Kent, 1 from Winterville, 1 from the 3 other little towns that.
They could have, if they wanted to, they could have 3 from Fort Kent,
and just two.
And they could have one from St. John Plantation and one from New Canada, if they wanted to. So this basically says you can't have more than three directors from one town. And that's because Madawaska automatically will have three from their one town.
But Madawaska is a town by themselves,
Right.
they're joined. Fort Kent, 27 has 5 districts, 5 towns.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Madawaska obviously should have that because it's proportionate. But 27, I don't agree with having 4.
Just remember, when we form this RSU, Fort Kent will have the most representation on that board.
Because they're the
Because they're the largest town.
27 will have the most.
No,
No,
Fort Kent will.
But,
Because you'll be forming an RSU with Fort Kent, St. John, Frenchville, St. Agatha, Mattawa, it'll be the towns.
So is this board gonna be a public hall, like meeting, like how many people are gonna be on this board?
That's what has to be negotiated.
that's what, well, when we form an RSU, all the towns participating
Yeah,
need a representative. So Madawaska though, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Madawaska may end up having the same membership as Fort
Okay,
Kent.
that's
Because the
right.
communities are relative, it all depends on what kind of variable there is on that representation.
That's where I was going, because the percentage that Madawaska has compared to Fort Kent is very close, isn't it?
It is. The populations are not that far off.
Right, okay, so they would have the same amount of representation, I can see that.
Has there been interest from, like I kind of see where you guys are going, I agree, like, into 27, we got Wallagrass, Eagle Lake, St. John, St. Francis, even Allagash, right?
No.
No?
No, there's vision.
Okay. Have people from those other towns expressed an interest in being part of this, like St. John, Wallagrass?
Part of what?
Like, if we had the 5 directors, there would be one from Wallagrass, one from Eagle Lake, one from St. John, one from St. Francis.
No.
Eagle Lake's not part of the.
You have to remember, this is an interlocal agreement language that I just came up with an idea to try to get us over the hump to the formation of an RSU. Because if you all and Madawaska at the top decide, no, we're not touching the ILA language, I don't know that we're gonna have success to come to an agreement by December 30th about how to resolve issues. And this is one issue that 27 has right now, needs to be resolved because this board, Val Unified, will have the power to make decisions about what's gonna happen next in the school project. And they find that is problematic.
That's the problem right now, but once we address that, what's the other issue gonna be?
I
You know,
think,
it's gonna barrel roll down, and so we fix a proportionate voting, now what are we gonna do? They're gonna have something else they want to vote on, you know? It'd be nice to have everything on the table, so we know a timeline of what everybody's looking to get out of this.
right. So that's why in this negotiation next week, you have to, if this is an offer, you have to counter with something else that is palatable to you.
Well, excuse me then.
Yeah.
I can see where MSAD 27 would go along with this. Because I think that the way this is set up is quite fair. And, you know, it would still give us 5 directors, they accuse us of always being with Madawaska. We'd still have 5 votes and instead 27 would still have 5 votes. So I think this is workable.
I see it, yes, but I see it like a 50-50.
Yeah.
Like if Madawaska and MSAD33 are on board and then all of MSAD27 is not, then there's a 50-50 and where do we go from there?
Yeah, who cast the deciding vote?
I just want to remind you guys that the decisions that Val Unified makes are very, very limited. Essentially, you are agreeing upon administrators, whether you want them or not. That's like the biggest thing Val Unified does. You approve a budget. That's the second biggest thing. And then you're approving new policies. Other than that, it's like just approving minutes. And I mean, there's really, really limited. And if we go back, if you attach to your Madawaska letter, you have all the history of votes of Valley Unified. Like they're always, almost always unanimous because we don't really do anything. When we hit a snag was when we had the vote for the phase 2 engineering, and we were going to consider whether WDRC should go on as our what are they called, engineering firm. That's when we had a 6-3 vote for the very first time. 3 members didn't want them, 6 did. And that this is the first time that we've ever seen that. So I think I think we need to recognize that Valley Unified doesn't really make huge decisions, but the huge decisions that they're going to make in the near future, and one's going to be, you know, like approval of ratifying the concept design of the school. You know, once we design the school and a selection team makes a recommendation to the Valley Unified Board, they're going to have to vote to ratify that. That's going to be a big vote, and I don't see why anyone would vote down a shiny new school, but they might.
It's happening right now. So,
Yeah,
So it feels like.
it's true.
I do have a question about, so this think tank is not a public meeting. It's basically off the record. There's no minutes taken, is that correct?
We'll take minutes. We will take minutes. Well, we're going to take notes, just for the record.
My concern is that what happens in the meeting doesn't get portrayed to the public the correct way, like in the past, like at our first meeting. And then the public is misled to how we're all going about this.
So we can record the meeting. We can post it and make it a public meeting. I just don't know. Committee meetings, we don't usually post them, but they're not necessarily private either.
And that's fine, like as long as it's not off the record, because that's hard to.
And-
as long as the truth's out there.
Yeah.
There's somewhere to get the truth.
And just remember that this is the negotiation is a good faith measure. If we get nowhere, there's an extra step there where we have a mediator brought in, and that is more formal and more official, and that's actually mediated for determinations. So hopefully we don't have to get to that point, but if we do, there is that safety measure there.
So what do you guys want from Josh and I?
Well, we want you to insist on the local keeping our elementary school, for one thing. And then the RSU will govern 7 to 12 only. And do not have another site selection.
No need to revisit that, it was done and it was done by professionals.
We don't have money to revisit it.
And that would be silly for us to
Yes.
waste all that money
And time.
and time. That was a year-long process. Let's remind them of that.
So is there, do you have anything else to add, Jean or Casey or Elena?
As far as the votes go, are we good with giving fair voting to the other communities? I agree with, I think we all agree with. 3 coming from Fort Penn and 2 outside, is that 3 coming from Madawaska?
And Madawaska or MSAD33 might not like this, and I don't know that, you know, it's just for a discussion point. Somebody might come with a better idea. I know we had a meeting with 27, was it last week? And one of the board members said, well, why can't we just use the RSU board to go? And I said, well, because we have to form that first, and there's a process to form that. They wanted to know if it was like, if there was like a template that we can just follow, and there really isn't. When you form that RSU, it's specific to your communities, and it has to be tailored to your communities. So I do feel, and I did ask legal counsel on item K of my proposal, can the Valley Unified Board become the RSU board? Essentially, when that RSU board is formed, can they also govern Valley Unified? And they would be able to do that. It would have to be you'd have to adjourn your RSU meeting and then, hold your Valley Unified meeting. And again, very limited scope of things Valley Unified would have at that time. You wouldn't be governing a school, you'd just be approving your superintendent, and your other administrators and a budget. But that board can become that board, and I think it should be, right? If we have an RSU board that has gone through a whole entire process that everyone's comfortable with, why not make them the Valley Unified board as well, so that they're making decisions on both behalf.
So could the existing Valley Unified Board, you're saying we could be the RS?
It should be the RSU board, in my opinion, rather than having yet another board, just for the sake of, having that board. We don't have enough people.
So that means that SAD33 would be losing one vote.
Not necessarily at that time. It all depends on how the RSU is formed. I'm pretty sure that you're going to get representation from Frenchville and St. Agatha. So at the very least, they're always going to have 2 board members, and it might even be more. I don't know how it's going to all work out. So you'll always have that representation from both communities.
So is it something to think about to reach out to the Cushing towns to see if they want to be a part of our RSU? Is that too
I think
messy or?
I think that should be part of our conversation for the same thing next week. Because when we do a notice of intent, we have to have all partners signing on. And it would be.
So you're talking here? I mean,
In the state, it's all right with adding additional members when we do the RSU.
Yes, because the RSU will not be formed until we have Valley Unified High School in operation. So essentially, your voter is going to be going to the poll at the same time to approve the school and to approve an RSU. One's not coming before the other, so there's no danger in the tuitioning towns having a say in the regional school. The regional school is, the only say in the regional school is 3327 in Madawaska. That project was awarded to you guys. But who comes to your school afterwards and who is part of your district at that point, that becomes.
that can be taken care of later.
Yeah.
So St. Clair could.
I don't know if an unorganized territory can. I don't know about that. I don't know. And other, even though you form an RSU only with the 3 communities, which would probably be kind of easier to manage, those other entities can join in or petition to join in later. I believe you can do that. Petition to join
With representation.
later, yeah. So I don't know how that all.
So excuse me, are you having a board meeting tomorrow?
Madawaska has their committee.
And they're gonna have this information as well?
They will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Okay, if not, we'll continue to MSAD plus 3. Giselle.
Okay, so I'm basically going to ask you if you have questions on what you were sent, but overall, just a quick summary of the changes in transportation. As you know, Principal Fantasia is taking care of transportation in MSAD33 as far as the bus scheduling. And he's also started some of the online courses that work with TransFinder, which is a free program and free software we get from the Department of Education. I don't know how beneficial TransFinder will be here concerning the economics of cutting down your routes, because your routes are basically straight lines, straight to Sinclair, straight to Frenchville. So we may not find a lot of savings using TransFinder, but what it will do is help the schools when they get questions from the parents for time of pickup, time of drop off, changes of address, those kinds of things. It's going to just help with the bureaucratic part of transportation. So I'm very happy that your principal is doing this. Your current bus fleet, I gave you some information, and the packet that you got today has one page that's updated from Friday, and it's the transportation MSAD33 page. And just underneath it, it says final as of June. I did get more figures from Jackie today. And so she did put additional repair costs for fiscal year 20.
So fiscal year 20, I think you originally had like 41,000, it's actually 45,000 in expenses. So you have that, the 2-year total, and please remember that one of those years is a COVID year, but in 2 years, you've spent 71,586 on repairs for your buses. Your bus fleet overall is aged, and your drivers do say that the buses are old. But we have good news for you. You've already budgeted for one bus. When we can get that bus is the big question, because as the superintendent mentioned a while ago, the lots are empty right now. They're trying to fulfill as many orders as possible. And we did luck out with Peter Siwa, Associates, Fort Kent, finding some on a lot. They're 2019 models. But as the superintendent stated, the rear axle will be changed so that the gear ratio is brought up from, I think, 4.29 to 5.4, something close to that. So that's good news. You're gonna get 3 buses. 2 of them should arrive. The 2 that are being geared up should arrive within the month. And the 3rd one will be later this spring. There's no date for that one. You also have a page that talks about your vehicle inventory. This is from the Department of Education, the data. And you can see that 5 of your buses are replaceable. 3 and 4 are currently off your lot. We're no longer using number 4 as of 2 weeks ago. And that's the last page in that packet, which talks about the inspection that happened just recently. I think we've had some time to read that. And that's basically the news I have for transportation. I don't know if you've had any questions.
Any questions, anybody?
And finally, I'm going to just state that we are looking at your costs. I am examining what do other schools about your size do for maintaining their bus fleet. You have a local garage that takes care of maintaining certain things that are broken or oil changes and so forth. But I don't think that you have anyone that's helping to repair when you have to do some body work. Some, taking off rust, repainting, or refabricating the metal. I don't think you have that, and I think that's part of our problem, is that the rest is getting a better deal. So we're looking at that, and we may have suggestions in the future.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Would they ultimately fix what they sell?
No, I don't think so. And we use them when necessary, when the local repair garage can't fix certain things. But your main repairs are local.
Do our local auto body shops, there's 2 in town, do they repair buses? I know that they're.
If we ask them to, they might. That's one of the things we're going to be looking at. Other districts do their own. Other neighboring districts. I don't know the small districts like yourselves, what they do, and we're looking at that.
It's not, so in the tech center, there's no auto body on that. I used to remember that.
They do the welding though, because we've taken some of our equipment from our business over to the welding at the tech center, and he's done some major welding on some of our heavy boat trailers and equipment.
We do welding, but we don't do the mudding and
The finesse of the
painting it and, the bondo, we used to, but we don't have the equipment any longer.
And as you saw in the inspector's report, some of it is cosmetic, some of it could be, a little bit of rust taken off a bumper and, repainted, but even those small projects require someone to do it, someone with the know-how. So we'll be looking at suggestions. But remember, good news for this year, that's really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks to Peter Solti. Otherwise, we'll be with one. And we'll continue, we'll keep updating your fleet as best we can.
2 of those buses have no local funds, because they're coming from the CRF funds.
Great.
Well, continue with new business. Then, that's all.
Yeah, the only thing I have for items for information, we do have a new hire recommendation. You should have a letter in your packet. And this is from Mr. Lovelock. He's pleased to announce that the MSAD33 routine candidate for consideration for the vacant educational technician 3 position at the center and at Wisdom as being Miss Jeannie Bollier. After interviewing Miss Bollier, determined that through thoughtful consideration that she serves as an Ed Tech 3 for both facilities, as her qualifications fully support her hire. We currently will split the position between both facilities until an additional suitable candidate is identified and hired to fill one of the 2 vacant positions. So one of the things that I've asked, or actually what Mr. Van and Mr. Labo came up with themselves was looking at what their greatest need was during the day. And Jeannie will go back and forth. I believe she's starting her day at the Rouse building and then the afternoon in Mr. Labo's building. For now, we're gonna just see if this meets our need. And if it doesn't, we'll come back and ask for your permission to hire an additional Ed Tech for Wisdom, as Jeannie was primarily, she was interviewing for the SJVTC position. So we'll see how it goes, and the principals will keep me updated. But right now, your recommendation is for Jeannie Bollier. Jeannie has served as a long-term sub. Just last year, she was long-term subbing for majority of the year at Madawaska Middle High School.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to approve Jeannie Bollier as Ed Tech 3 at the St. John Valley Technology Center in Wisdom. Josh, second by Jean. Any questions? Not, we'll take a vote in favor. Okay, all in favor.
And we still have a opening for a temporary support personnel at Dr. Levac Elementary School.
And that's been advertised.
It is currently advertised. We're thinking, while I'm talking about temporary support personnel, I don't know what it looks like right now in the district here, but I have heard from the other 2 districts that subs are really more than ever hard to come by. So we're brainstorming right now a campaign, possibly with some incentives, if we can use CRF funds as incentives. And I had thrown out the idea of, you sub 10 times, you get a Amazon gift card for your 10th time, something to entice people to come sub. I think we really need it. So be on the lookout for that. And if you know anybody who is looking for a great part-time job, send them our way.
Okay, so next is the appointment of advisors. And you have a list, and this is just to appoint one advisor for NHS.
Yeah, your first one is for your NHS advisor.
So we'll need a motion for that.
I make a motion to approve Teresa Cicero as NHS advisor for 2021.
Okay, is there a second? Second, Melina. Any questions? If not, we'll take a vote in favor. All in favor. And next on the agenda is the appointment of professional learning community support system memberships.
We do have a letter for that.
Yes. Okay, so we'll need a motion to approve the TLCSS committee members in teams.
I make a motion to approve the PLCSS committee members and support team members for 2021.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, Casey. Any questions? Okay, not, we'll vote in favor. All in favor. Okay. Do you have anything else, Ben?
No, just reminding you that our next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 16th, and that's at Dr. Levac Elementary School. If something comes up, go between now and then, we'll be in touch with you and to try to get a meeting if we need to. That's all I have.
Good, we need a motion to adjourn. Jeannie, is there a second?
Nobody wants to.
Let's take her in a row.
Everyone in favor? of adjourning.
Well, my kids are in bed yet, so I really don't.
Lena, we could have a